Welcome, everyone. Episode 14 of Chirping Zebras. I'm Mark Riley alongside Gino Bender Jr. Coming to you from AOA Studios, the best studio around to tape anything, podcasts. If you want to have a record you want to tape or anything else, you should come up here to AOA Studios. And where our sponsor, title sponsor, is Referees Crease. All your refereeing needs, scheduling,
training, signing, you name it, we got it. And we're picking up more and more hockey than you can possibly imagine. We're just partnering up with the Black Bear Group, and we're just taking, youth hockey, men's leagues over to Pennsylvania, Michigan, Chicago, you name it. It just awesome. It's absolutely insane what's coming through it's insane. But
I love it.
We just keep growing and growing, and my father's retiring, as he says, right? So go figure.
He's been retiring for a few years,
Yeah, I just tell him to just say you're changing positions. You're not retiring. You're, just slide over here.
Yeah.
When you say retire, you should be down in Florida smoking a stogie and golfing every day.
Yes.
Not answering emails. And then after I already answered or my wife already answered.
He's got to grab the bus and drive it south.
It's so true. Like when you start your own company and you work your way up, right? It's just like that guy that has it, owns it. That's his baby. You just can never let it go.
Oh yeah.
But, it's work in progress. We're chipping away.
He was on episode 4. If anyone wants to check it out. Before we get going, we got a special guest. Before we bring on our actual guest, this guy here picked him up about a week or two after we started the podcast. Frankie Chirps is his name, and he's got his own Chirping Zebras
you dog
t-shirt
lovers out there.
Yeah, Gino's not a dog guy, but that's because you got bit by a dog. This guy, if he bites you, he won't even break skin.
It was a pit bull. Yeah.
Well, all right, I'll give you that. This is a Yorkie.
Yeah, that thing, I don't know. It was sitting next to me on the ride, giving me the hairy eyeball. But
I take him out for walks and matching sweaters, and I don't look too manly. I'm gonna put him down now and let him run about the studio. Hopefully he won't.
Every time he pops up from under the table, it scares the shit out of me. So like, what is that? I'm like, oh, all right.
And I think I don't look tough walking them in matching sweaters, right?
And my wife's like, yeah, you're from Salty, right? Yeah. It's a real tough guy.
Right?
Afraid of that thing.
He's not happy with our producer right now. See, he's going at him hard.
But hey, we're taping right now. The Bruins playoff game's going on, right? Bruins Toronto. We're rocking our Bruins swag. You got that awesome Bruins shirt. That's a nice college shirt. Good golf shirt. So
I got this with Bowl with a Bruin. I do a lot of stuff with the Bruins.
My grandmother loves the Bowl with the Red Sox. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There was some grandmas there at the Bowl with the Bruin. And we go up. I've done it 3 years now. And the 1 year I didn't do it was my knee was all messed up when I had the operation a couple of years ago. But
is that when you gave back all your games?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was. I took them all though, and then gave them back. I was hopeful. But then I couldn't. Then I wrecked my back rehabbing the knee. That's what happens when you're old and you don't work out anymore. But I got this particular year. We got these shirts.
Yep.
Also bowling that year was from Nesson, Sophia Yurkskovich.
Oh yeah.
And I got a picture. Matter of fact, we'll flash it up there of her and I in the shirts. And,
now, are you taller than her, or is she taller than you?
I'm taller than her.
All right. Good.
I am taller than her. So I might have been on my tippy toes, but I'm taller than her in the picture, as you can see. And she's my favorite. She's my favorite on Nesson. Jack Edwards is retiring, and we all love or hate Jack, depending on who you ask. I love him.
My wife absolutely loves him. I can't stand him. I couldn't stand him. I mean, great guy, right? Dynamite. You love the homer. Man, is he tough on referees? I can't. He's
a polarizing figure, as they say.
Is. Yeah,
and not quite as good looking as Sophia.
No,
I'll just say that. But you don't remember back in the day when they were on TV 38, the Bruins were.
Oh, TV 38. Oh yeah, I remember the commercials. Yeah, John Cusick,
John Cusick and Fred Pearson. And talk about they used to be harsh on everyone.
I never thought I would watch a Bruins game without listening to those two announce it. And when those two finally retired, it was just like I couldn't listen to the Bruins ever like I used to. It was something
Sanderson
weird.
was good.
Yeah, he was awesome.
Derek
he was
Sanderson
unbelievable.
Was
yeah.
But All right. Well, enough of that talk. We want to introduce our guest tonight, and he's a 22-year veteran of the National Hockey League as a linesman. I met him back in the late 90s, and we worked the WHL together. And coming to us from the left coast, Vaughan Rody. Welcome to Chirping Zebras, Vaughan.
Hey, my pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me, Ralph. Thanks for having me, Gino.
Right on. Thanks for having us. And I love how you stress the late 90s and, not giving your age out too much.
Well, here's the thing. So back when I was when I went to select camp in Colorado, I got sent, the NHL sent 6 of us to the Western Hockey League training camp.
Yep.
And you might remember some of the names, Rhodes. We had John Lively, Dave Hansen,
Sure.
Harry Dumas,
Oh, yeah.
who went on to marry Kerry Fraser's daughter.
Yep.
His career was not long. You marry Kerry Fraser's daughter and you still don't make it. That'll tell you. But he could skate like the wind. We had Chris Rooney, Ian Walsh. So we all go out and we do the training camp, and then we get sent out during the season. So we fly out to Seattle, and this guy picks me up at the airport, and we stay at his house. You lived in what, Marysville back then?
Marysville, yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Good memory, dude.
Yeah, you could see Puget Sound from your deck.
That's
right.
right. Yeah,
Am I
exactly.
remembering all this right?
Yeah. You were remembering all this too.
And I drank back then. But
Yeah.
so he picks
My
me
wife
up
actually at the time thought she won the lotto when you walked in. She's like, "Oh, this is going to be a great weekend."
Who's this guy talking funny?
Stop it. Well, the funniest thing was we show up, and next thing you know, you have 3 cats, which no one said a word about, right? I walk in, and the 3 cats are looking at me, and I go, "You have cats?" And he goes, "Yeah." I go, "Fuck." He goes, "What?" I go, "I'm severely allergic." I couldn't fucking breathe the whole weekend I was there.
Shoving Benadryl.
I had to sleep with the windows open in the bedroom.
Oh, that's brutal.
And it was freezing.
Oh, yeah.
And it was in the middle of winter. And I froze my balls off the first trip out. But the next trip, I brought the Zyrtec. I brought some medicine so I could breathe.
That's
the shot.
Good memory, dude.
That's awesome.
Well, the other funny story, we did it. So you go out there, and we did Seattle, we did Tri-Cities, we did Spokane,
Yeah.
and we did what's the other one near Tri-Cities?
Portland.
Portland. Yeah. So you do a swing. So we go out to do Tri-Cities, and you got to drive through basically like a mountain pass, right?
Yeah.
So we drive out together. It was you, your wife, and me.
Yeah.
And your Jeep Cherokee.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And see, I don't forget much.
No, geez, you remind the elephants.
So
what route did you go on? What route was it?
No, I just remember certain things. This trip I remember. But we went out, did the game, and we had to drive back after the game. We weren't staying because I think you had a day job at the time.
Yeah, I
Boeing
did. I
or
worked
something.
at Boeing as an inspector.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I said, "You got to get up to work tomorrow. I'll drive." Right. So you and your wife, you pass out. We had a fucking blizzard going through that pass.
Oh, white knuckle.
I mean,
No way.
white out, right? I'm going 20 miles an hour the whole trip, right?
Yeah.
They're conked out the whole time. As we come into Seattle, it like the sky, it was like the Wizard of Oz when everything gets
everything
color.
changes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We drive in, snow stops, it's beautiful. He wakes up and he goes, "Oh, that wasn't a bad ride, huh?"
It just rains in Seattle. It doesn't snow.
It's like, "Are you shitting me?" Oh, we had some laughs on that trip. But yeah, so those are my 2. But those are 2 of my obviously favorite memories
Those are good.
from back in the day.
Dude,
those trips were a blast.
They did a great job there. We met some really great guys coming through, and yeah, it was fun for all of us. And you know what? Really, at the end of the day, like, a kid from middle of Canada, and meeting a kid from Boston, and getting along so well. I mean, like, when, in what other situation would that have ever really occurred? So it was really kind of awesome.
Yeah, no, that was and we hit it off because we hit the gym every day we were out there because we were both pretty into the lifting back then.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was a blast. It was like, you meet someone and you're like, "Wow, I think I've known this guy my whole life." That
Right.
was
Yeah,
that was you
right.
and me.
Yeah,
seriously.
I agree 100%. Yeah.
And
Now I'm
that's
at the Jim's Fish and Chips, really, but other than that, that's kind of what I'm into.
This isn't a rom-com, by the way, all of a sudden. We were accused, Rhodes, of being a woke podcast by this nitwit. I told this story a couple times.
yeah, he's not over it. He brings it up every episode.
We had Kelly Cook on, who did a bunch of things. First woman to do an NHL event.
Sure.
And I throw it out there that NHL should have a female official, and I got all kinds of grief on the social medias about it. And one guy goes, "Oh, this must be a real woke podcast." I'm like, dude, you have not watched.
Yeah.
Well, it's I digress.
At least they commented, right, Riles?
I think there's 6 to 9. I mean, Gino, you'd know how many female officials in the American Hockey League? It's like at least 6 of them, I think.
Yeah, there's I think you're right on the money. I think there's 6 to 9, both lines and referees. Yeah. So there's a good handful of them, and I know some of them that started don't do it anymore, but there's about 9 of them right now. But I mean they're great. They're got to be good communicators, good skater, know the game. They've all played it their whole life, and you see the women's game; it just keeps growing and growing. And
Lord,
it's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And the women's bean pot, Kelly Cook just worked it. It was like the biggest crowd, like women's hockey has really had. It's usually they're playing in front of their parents and a couple of scouts here and there.
Sure.
But, so it was really good to see.
Well, it's nice to see. It's nice to see things progressing.
Right.
So now you worked the Western Hockey League pretty much exclusively before the NHL. You went right from the WHL to the NHL, correct?
Yeah. I was really fortunate, honestly. Like I moved from Winnipeg to Seattle to take, at the back in the day, they had full-time positions. So you had to get one of these 5 full-time positions to move on to the NHL. And one was offered to me. It was either Regina, Saskatchewan, or Seattle. And I kind of thought, well, let's take a chance on this. We'll see if we can make this a go. I can tell you don't really want to go to Regina. It's the city that fun forgot. So I ended up going to Seattle. It was awesome. And 7 years later, hired to the National Hockey League, and very lucky. Didn't have to do the American League. Went right to the league. So it was great. So I actually think, to be honest with you, Riles, looking back, 22 years, in that league, I think that kind of, might have been a little bit of a detriment, like it happened, like, the grind it was a struggle to get there, but then getting hired to the National Hockey League, I didn't have that opportunity to be able to deal with adults. I went from, dealing with kids to dealing with pros, and there's a huge learning curve, that I think it would have done me a good service had I been lucky enough to go to the American
That's an
League.
unbelievable point. So like I felt that. So I moved out to Omaha, Nebraska, worked the USHL for a season. And I was with the veteran linesman down working the Southern Pro League. And Aaron Mills, his brother Bevan's in the NHL.
Yeah.
Right? So I was with Aaron. And I went down and I was, talking to these kids, like the pro guys, like they were USHL junior kids, 18, 20-year-old kids. And after the first period, he gave me a quick little, hey, these guys are pros. You don't have to yell after every whistle. You could talk to them and, just call good penalties. You don't need to call the stand like you do up in, and he gave me some really good advice. And that's why it's really good as a young referee to have a veteran linesman that's been around on the lines with you and, to give you that guidance and how it's supposed to be done. Like that's missing in our game right now. We don't have that veteran presence passing that knowledge down to everybody else coming up. And and that's a great point is you do learn how to talk to pros and talk to men. You're not talking to a kid.
Yeah. And I think too, like, that's kind of like, and I think Mark, you can kind of maybe speak on this. Like when you came out to the Western League, that was new to you. You're working, US hockey, the rules are different. The standards different. Now you're coming to the Western Hockey League. And back in the day, that was a tough, that I hate to say this is going to be the woke podcast again, but that was a man's league. You know what I mean? Like it was
men were men,
rough,
the sheep was scared.
Yeah. It was rough. I mean, like they brought that, rule under 5 minutes if, differential of goals of 2 or more, and all of a sudden game misconducts because it was just brawl after brawl after brawl. So I don't know if you guys were used to seeing that when you came out here. That was a learning curve for you too, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting and different to go out there. And the biggest thing I had to get in comfortable with was wearing the visor. Because back when we were working, we didn't wear a visor in either the USHL or the East Coast League.
Scar right here.
And then we went out there and I had to put the visor on. And I remember the first one, Seattle, the Thunderbirds gave it to me.
Yeah.
And it came down so low. The first time I blew my whistle, my ears were bleeding. And that was the toughest thing for me. Yeah. But it was also, I think I brought that Boston attitude out there, which kind of helped me a little bit.
Yeah.
But I remember we had one of the games in Seattle was a complete shit show. You know, fights everywhere. But luckily I was with you. I don't remember who our other linesman was. But you know, you were someone that was great to work with because you know, you felt, I knew I was protected. I knew you had my back. And it was, you know, I think without that, I would have been, you know, it would have been like because I did the West Coast Hockey League and Boise.
That was great. That was crazy.
And and I went down to Tacoma. And those games were different because it was kind of like a step below the East Coast League. So the speed was fine, but it was, you know, the linesmen were different, especially in Boise. And you go in and you work with someone that you never worked with before. And it was kind of like, all right, what's going on here? You know, are they gonna be out here with me, or, you know, is this gonna go poorly? So
well, you did the League of Service, Riles, because you actually you followed Ian Walsh and Chris Rooney, and so finally they were like, look, we got an American guy who's actually got a lot of skill. I hope Walsh and Rooney are watching this.
Yeah, and those two had what 20-something year careers. I had a week. I got a week in the NHL.
Yeah, well, even a blind squirrel gets in that occasionally. Eh?
Hey, they don't have a podcast.
That's right. Exactly. Well, they're going to get this clip. I can tell you that.
Well, I'm better at them in a couple different areas, and one of them's in the weight room. But you mentioned Regina. I got to tell this story because and this will prove that we're not woke. But at the training camp in Calgary, we do one of those team building things, right? And we all get put on teams. Now, I don't know. Scotty Zelkin was there. Kelly Sutherland. You know, there was a bunch of guys. They don't know me from Adam. So they said, one of the questions was, what's the best thing about working the Western Hockey League? My answer was rhymes with Regina.
That's funny.
Dude, when the supervisor read it out loud, he almost didn't finish it. He was horrified. Everyone's trying not to laugh. And it was funny because Rose and Ian, they all knew it was me. They knew it came from me. So good. So every time I hear that city, I think of that.
That's a great story.
And apparently Regina is the Johnstown, Pennsylvania of Canada.
Really?
Fun died in Johnstown too.
Yeah.
It's a good city to drive through.
Even I was there on St. Patrick's Day one year in Johnstown, and even on St. Patrick's Day, people were miserable. I'm like, you can't be miserable on St. Patrick's Day.
Well, that creek's always green too. They didn't just.
Well, it ain't. Yeah, it ain't dye. That's a different kind of green right there. But I don't want to shit on Johnstown too much, you know. But so that's great. One thing you brought up though is interesting because we talked about it almost on every episode. What the NHL is doing now with guys, plucking them out of pro hockey and throwing them right in. And whether it's a year in the American League and then right into the NHL or right into the NHL, referees and linesmen. And I think, like you mentioned, you don't have that grind that we talk about, the experience, the game count. And right now, the state of refereeing right now in the NHL is pretty shaky. And I know you don't have to agree with that, but I'd like to get your take on the system they use now.
Yeah. You know, I want to be careful here with how I answer that. Obviously, you know, some of those guys, you know, I worked with them and they're my friends. And I think it's like anything, you know, we can't really blame the individuals who are doing the job. We kind of have to look at the process in place. And, and I think the process in place is it's not it's not conducive to success, honestly. You know, I believe that you know, learning how to officiate is a craft. I believe that craft takes years to kind of learn. I think you would be hard pressed if a player steps into the National Hockey League and he's learning at the National Hockey League level or the American Hockey League level. I think those guys learn at you know, minor bantam and midget, and then they move on to junior. And I don't think that's any different from the National Hockey League, honestly, as the officiating aspect is concerned. While I think that there is an avenue for players to you know, finish playing and then move into the officiating ranks, I don't think we should be training them in the pro levels. I really don't.
I can't agree with you more. 100%, because I lived it in the American League. So when they started bringing these guys in, they weren't. I was getting viewed, and they were getting viewed in a game. It was a different playing field, right? Like, oh, they didn't know any better. It's like, well, why? They're here. Like, they should know these rules. And there was one kid that was hired. He's a friend of mine, like you said. Like, there's nothing wrong with the individual. It's the process, and that's a great way to put it. And you know, we're in the locker room getting ready, just shooting the shit, and like he asked me like 3 or 4 rules, and he didn't know any of them. And I'm like, I go, you have an NHL contract, and you don't know these fucking rules? I'm like, I just put my headphones on and I just walked out of the room. I was like, this is like how can you just put someone in there? Because now it's relying on the veteran guy at that level to carry them through. Because yes, you can go out and you can go ref one hockey game and probably get through it. But it's the grind. It's seeing it. It's that when to step in and make the call and when it's okay to have a non-call. And you have to feel that. And that's 6 or 7 years of experience. And I think there is an avenue for guys like this. Like, I have 3 or 4 guys right now in my system that are former players. They played in college hockey. And one kid just went from working junior highs to, you know, starting in juniors this year, right in September, working his way all the way up. And he did a Southern Pro League game on the lines this year, right? And he just worked his way up all the way through this season. But he saw it at every level, and you got to feel it and move up. And if you can get fast track. Some guys can get fast track quick, but you need to go through that process and experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
and I think too, and you made a great point. You can't blame the people that are doing the job. It's the process. Or I love the way you say process. It's outstanding. But I love Canadian
I love it too. Yeah.
Accents, and I love Indian accents.
It's when people love, like, listen to me, like, say cock, kid. I'm like, yeah, no.
No, I just when an Indian guy says appreciate, I just love it. I can't get enough of it. But you're right, because all these guys are great guys. It's not a knock on them personally at all. It's the process that they're doing it, and it's really not working in a lot of different ways. And you see it more and more now, and it's like, how do you fix it? You know, I don't know how you fix it, but I'm just saying that it's definitely headed, because you got guys like Runes and Wes who are getting towards the end of their career. Ian just retired. You have, you know, these veterans that are moving out, and they're in trouble. I mean, if they keep, I mean, trying to do what they're doing.
Yeah. I think too, like, I don't know, maybe Gino, you were the one that mentioned, like, you know, people could probably step into a National Hockey League game or American League game, and you could probably get through it, you know. But they're not paying you NHL salary for the games that everybody can officiate. They're paying you an NHL salary for the games that only a certain few can officiate. And I think that that's what people have to remember, you know. It's easy to, you know, to do an exhibition game in you know, Minnesota or, you know, Florida or whatever, but you got a game going on tonight in Boston that it takes a certain individual to be able to work. And it's a tough grind. So yeah, you've got to kind of learn that skill, I think. And I don't know the answer. I know they do a nice job of, you know, I'm involved in the Western Hockey League, and they, you know, the NHL comes out, they do a real nice job of talking to our guys and taking and taking guys from, you know, the Western League, from the OHL, from the Q, from the USHL, I would assume. But I think it's like anything, you know, if there's going to be a police officer's job, just because somebody is a female, they shouldn't just be hired. They should take the most qualified person. And that's no different than the National Hockey League as the official either. Like, take the most qualified person. So, and, you know, on the flip side of that, I tell our guys all the time, like, you know, Riles just talked about it here about fitness. You know, I tell our guys all the time, like, I'm tired of the excuses. Like, I'm tired of the nonsense about, you know, guys saying, oh, they're just hiring ex-players, blah, blah, blah. If you want a chance, go get in fucking shape, dude. You know,
I say that to kids all the time. That's great.
Let them look at you like you got muscle in your shit. And then let them go, okay, you know, and this guy can skate. So, you know, give them every opportunity that they have to look at you twice. Don't just throw out excuses.
I mean, that's what Chris Rooney said to me too, right? He's just like, just don't give them anything. Like, make sure your laces, everything is tip top shape. Don't give them nothing to look back at you on and say, hey, we can't take you because of one thing,
right?
You know. So that's really good advice.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of game count, you started refereeing when you were 14?
Yeah, 14. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
so
14.
I was 11.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a long time, dude. You know what? I mean, Gino, that just tells you and me that we were shitty players.
Yes, exactly.
So, you know,
I didn't start till I was 23. I just want that.
I had a lot of assists. Phantoms.
And a lot of penalties.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time in the box.
Yeah, that's funny.
But you started, where did you, like, you started doing youth, obviously.
I played, you know, I played until I thought my career kind of took a sudden, I thought I was a lot better than I really was, honestly, back home, and got a rude awakening. And I was like, well, this could be over in a hurry here. So I better kind of think of another route. And you know what, Riles, honestly, like, I was always kind of blessed with being able to skate, you know, and I could always kind of skate. That was my thing. So when I went out to, it's funny, like I just told this story. Ryan Galloway just worked his last game in Winnipeg.
Saw that, yeah.
He retired, 22 years in the league, and he was done. And in our conversation, one of the guys asked me, he's like, how did you get your start, Rhodes? And I said to him, I said, you know, I was working Winnipeg minor hockey. And I don't know how it was for you guys back there, but our referee and chief, our assigners, they all wanted to work junior hockey. So if you as a young guy were coming through the program and you got an opportunity to work a junior game and one of your assigners hadn't been given that opportunity yet, he would kind of grease you a little bit on, hey, you got a Winnipeg minor, you got a 6 and 7 year old game to do. You can't go do juniors. And that's actually kind of what happened to me. I had a guy by the name of Earl Ormshaw phone me one Monday afternoon and said, hey, we've got an assignment opened up in Tuesday at Sam Southern Arena for junior hockey. Would you be able to go do that? And I was like, I didn't know that guy from Adam, but I was like, absolutely. I got a 7-year-old Winnipeg minor game at Sergeant Park. I got to go get rid of. I'll phone you right back and say, yeah. I phoned my assigner. My assigner had been trying to get in that league for 10 years. And he said to me, if you go do this game and give this game back, this will be the last Winnipeg minor hockey game you ever worked. And that was the last Winnipeg minor hockey game I ever worked.
It's unbelievable that assigners still do this. It drives me absolutely wall for advancement. There's no advancement opportunities for these kids. There's so much junior hockey across the country that in these pockets of the country, they don't let their, well, I got to get my squirt games filled. I got to get my Pee-wee games filled. And they're not letting these kids flourish. And then they kind of fade out because they're getting yelled at for squirts and mites and not making much hockey. And you need to branch out. And like we have, like, I had a 16-year-old kid that worked my final in a junior league that we run out here. So it's like, we try to find those kids and identify them. And, you know, we put on some mini camps in the summertime. Like, we get New England District Camp this weekend coming up and just things like that, just to identify these young kids, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids that can skate, that play in the game, that, you know, there's something else after if you do not make it outside of playing.
Yeah. And I think it comes down to the person themselves too, because there are those certain kids that you can tell they want it. They're going to work at it. They're going to, like, you know, you
asking questions and
a skating coach, you know, Rhodes, we do like Zooms one-on-one, and we'll go through games with guys, right?
Perfect.
I have a couple that I've done, 6, 7, 8 games with them this season.
Yep.
And
awesome.
and those are the guys that are going to advance because they're taking it seriously. They're looking at it as a craft, as a job, as something they're going to take pride in. And then you got the people that are just out there for the paycheck and, or just out there to, for whatever reason.
Which is fine too, because I got a lot of squirts and mice that get.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with those guys either.
Those guys' last
Plenty
name
of money
is,
be made out there, folks. Grab them all the time.
as your dad says,
Always selling.
that last name is filled.
Yes.
Right? That's awesome.
That's funny.
No, but that's great. I mean, like taking that opportunity and then running with it. Like you never know when you're going to get your opportunity. Like I got my first Division I college game in the bands because of a snowstorm. I was doing a junior tournament in Fitchburg, so we were out ahead of it in Boston. We were 45 minutes outside the city. The game was in Connecticut. My father comes running down the stairs and was like, "You're going to ref UConn Sacred Heart, and see you later." And then off and jumped in the car and went and did it. That's how I got my first D1 referee assignment, right?
Yeah, isn't that great? And
It's awesome.
Probably happened so quick you didn't even have a chance to be nervous, which is just awesome.
I actually, I had a, so that's Elena Cocky behind me, and I had my junior patch, because I didn't have that shirt with me. So I wore my junior crest in a college game.
That's awesome. Actually, you'll find this one funny, Rhodes. I did the lines for Gino.
Oh, that's right.
And your first college, it was a preseason game.
The preseason ECAC. That was the second year. Yeah. So when I got hired by the ECAC, and he goes, "Hey, jump on the lines, help him out, blah, blah, blah." And I never laughed so hard in my life. Like I don't even remember the game.
He's a funny dude, man.
Oh.
Yeah, but I'm not exactly a great linesman.
He was down in the corner with me at one point talking.
I was with him for 3 days and my abs hurt for like 7 days after. It was just, it's hilarious, actually.
That's awesome. One thing I'd love to get your take on, because you work the 3-man system and the 4-man system.
Yeah.
And we always talk like about the different systems, and, the 3-man system, that's what we came up in. Right.
Yeah.
And the 3-man system back in the day, you had guys like McCreary and Van Helm on and Frazier, and guys that had that personality that
Stewie,
Paul Stewart, episode 2.
Sure.
And when they walked in the building, everyone knew what they were getting.
Right.
Sure.
And whether they liked it or not, whether they thought they were good or not, they knew what they were getting. And now with the 4-man system, it's different because you got the 2 sets of eyes, you got the 2 sets of judgments. And everyone wants to be on the same page, but that's a difficult thing. So what's your take on both systems? And I know as a linesman, it's a little different because your job doesn't really change, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I actually think that, minor pro hockey, Western Hockey League, I actually like the 3-man system. I think you learn a lot about yourself.
Agreed.
As a referee in a 3-man system. I think you, I don't want to say you're thrown to the wolves, but you sure understand when the defecation's hitting the rotating oscillator, how to react. I can tell you that, and you get a grip on it. You gain confidence. You're not relying on your buddies. You're not relying on on the veteran guy, which happens at all levels. So I actually really believe that a lot of those leagues should go back to the 3-man system. I think the game might be a little fast for it right now, and you can kind of pick and choose your spots. But I enjoy the 3-man system just because we talked about it. This is a craft that needs to be learned, and you need to understand how to react under fire. I'm sure Johnstown's not a great place when the shit's hitting the fan. So relying on somebody veteran presence or relying on yourself, I think you should bet on yourself.
Well, that depends on who you ask, because like that's a lot of fun when shit hits the fan in Johnstown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like that's how I came up. I came up in the East Coast League system. That was all 1-man. There was no 4-man in that.
Yeah.
And then the American League, when I first came in, that was all 1-man. And then they started slowly getting like 30%, 40%, whatever. But primarily I was working 1-man system for the first like 3 years in the American Hockey League, and it was awesome. And for me as a referee, I struggled if I went from the 1-man system into the 4-man system, because there were different sight lines. It wasn't your game. You had to adjust to a partner. There was just something about it. And then it's just that natural human instinct, if you're out there with a veteran guy, to allow them to you know, oh, take that one on or whatever. But you can't look at it like that. You got to go out and just ref your game like you're in the one-man system, and you have a partner to rely on. You're constantly checking in on, but that's your game. Go out and call your game. Don't change anything. So I always found it a little difficult jumping from the one-man system into the 4. And when I will
say when I got hired to the NHL, they went to the 4-man system, and you know, so I mean, at the time, Riles, you make a great point. You know, like New York would understand that they were getting Dan Maruelli because there was only 16 of them there for the longest time. Right. Then they turned to 32, and now that's a different animal. Now there's probably 90, you know, on that picture. They almost need to make 2 pictures and stick them together. There's so many people in there now. But I will say that the veteran guys that I worked with, and you know, I came through with Kelly Sutherland and Mike Hasenfratz and Brad Meyer and Tommy Cowell, Walshy and Runes. You know, all of our veteran guys like you know, McCreary and Mick Magoo and you know, guys like that, Maruelli. They were just so amazing, and they really taught these guys how to be officials. You know, they could have really made life difficult because it was a big change for them too, and change sometimes scares people. But I will say, you know, our guys were real pros, and they took a lot of those guys, myself included, under their wing to make our life easier.
And that's what it's about, right? You want to pass it down to the next generation, that shared knowledge. It's so important, and how to be a pro, right? Like how to act when you walk in the room, how to act to the, you know, the attendants opening and closing the door for you, right? Like you're treating people with respect along the way, and you need a guy to kick in the ass every once in a while to set you straight and, you know, lay the law down. So then you can pass that along.
Absolutely. I think what I enjoyed back in the day was that those personalities. You know, like, and you mentioned those names, and immediately, not only do I have a picture in my head, but I know what game they called. You know, like, you knew when Mick Magoo, like, there's a name I haven't heard in a while. I could picture him.
I had all their top flight cards.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You would.
My grandmother was a big card collector.
I think Ian, we were doing a game one day, and this was right when we got helmets. And we were doing a game, and Mick Magoo was skating around, and he had you know, he'd never worn a helmet before, and then the NHL made him wear a helmet. And Ian LaPerriere skated up to him at the end of the first period, and he goes, "Jesus Christ, Mick, you look like Shrek." It was so funny.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. A lot of the guys were bucketless until they made him wear them.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't picture Kevin Collins wearing a bucket.
No. Yeah, and he didn't have the greatest hair either. He thought he did, but let's be honest.
The Big Bird special.
Yeah, he's not my boss anymore, so I can talk, you know, speak freely.
I think Frazier was the only one whose hair could probably stop a puck.
Oh, yeah, right.
You know, with all the hairspray. I think he had to keep Aquanet in business.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure on that, but I gotta say that he used more hairspray than I did back in high school, and I used a lot.
Oh, we tipped the trainers.
I was the original metrosexual back in high school before it had a cute name. I'll tell you that. I still got a skin routine.
I mean, if you take that hat off, your hair still sticks straight up.
I got some good lettuce right here.
Right there.
For my age, man, pretty good. I mean, it's not a full Caesar salad, but it's doing all right.
Hey,
you know?
Hey, I take that. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I'm not saying a word. There's an elephant in the room, and it's bald. No. You can throw one of those really
I tell
cool
everybody
cowboy
this is my
hats
choice.
Yeah, that's my choice.
It's excellent.
Just cover it with one of those sweet cowboy hats behind you. Holy shit.
Yeah, seriously.
What's the story on those? What are you riding ponies out there?
My wife's got a fetish.
I hope they're your wives.
We go to a dude ranch every year in June. I can't wait.
That's right.
Oh, it's awesome.
You gotta get yourself,
yeah, get yourself with some tassels and feathers on there. That'll look good on a bull. You know, put one on your dad. That would be fantastic. Oh, it'll match his giant wide tie he wore on episode 4.
Every year that everybody asks me for a picture of my old man on a horse. It's the funniest picture every year. It's awesome.
He's got to ride one of the little ones. Right? He's got to ride a little one, doesn't he?
They got to get the
little,
extra. They got to get the jumbo horse for him.
I love those little house horses. You ever see those little fuckers? Oh, it's
Oh,
hilarious. They just come trotting through the house. Oh, yeah, they call them house horses.
Like a
They're
dog?
like a horse, but yeah, they're the size of like a German Shepherd. I watch too much Instagram.
You got a dog. That's enough to.
Well, I know my dog is not exactly the most manly of dogs, but that's all right. He's you can hopefully you don't hear him barking in the back. Jesus
It's
Christ.
all good.
I'm never bringing him again. All right. One thing I did want to talk to you about, you mentioned something when we were talking before, one of your jobs that you have right now, which I think is super cool, that you're working with the Winnipeg Jets with.
Yeah, it's actually so I put a I was out of this league. It's it was actually on the 20th of April. It's been 2 years for me. So I last year I was kind of going through a little bit of a process as to just see if you could kind of reinvent yourself and get back in the game a little bit. And I thought, there's a niche here that I would like to kind of explore, and that was working with young centermen on the art of taking a draw, really. And I wanted to talk to a few teams. I put a proposal together. I sent it out. Had some traction, and the Winnipeg Jets were like, True North was like, we'd like to kind of start this out on a 3-month trial, and then it went to a 1-year trial, and I'm kind of hoping that at the end of this we turn this into a 2-year deal. I've loved it. It's a complete different avenue for me. It's a different animal. I'm on the back end now. I'm yelling at the linesman, drop the fucking puck.
I love it.
But it's been great. And to be able to kind of see it through their eyes a little bit, learn a little bit from them. And I think, and I hope them learn a little bit from me, has been fantastic. And I think, like I did the numbers yesterday for our team. I do a lot of the Manitoba Moose. I very seldom do I ever get the opportunity to work the Jets just at the beginning of the year. So it's just really the young guys, the young players on the Moose organization and the Jets draft picks. But we started this, do a little boasting here. We started at 33%. I was in Hawaii. I missed the first 2 games, and our face-off percentage was 33%, if you can believe that. And we finished yesterday at 59.2.
Right,
we got 4 guys on our team that are 60 plus. And when you look at, when you kind of match it, the American League doesn't keep stats on face-offs per se, team by team. But if you were to kind of put that towards the Pittsburgh Penguins, they were 54.6, I believe. So we beat them by almost 5%. I mean, our guys are they've bought in, and they've just been great, honestly.
Now, let me ask you, we have not a big problem, but in college hockey, a lot of kids are going down, like they're going down to almost a knee before the puck is down. So like there was one kid on Holy Cross that had it down. Like his face-off percentage was insane. And he just had that thing timed, and I tracked one night, and there was one that I think he was down before the puck was down. And we didn't catch it, but we did want him like twice or whatever. But it was just an art. Is that something that it's being taught at the NHL level, or is it kind of just quick hands?
So Gino, that's a great kind of a point, like a talking point to our guys. I tell them to stay on their skates. That we're talking about the top 2% of players in the world that are playing at high levels like that.
Right.
They stay on their skates, and I think we did a little evaluation number, and the percentage was 67% of faceoffs are won second and third opportunities. So if you're on your knees and if you're on your skates, you have no opportunity to get that puck again. So I tell our guys all the time, you can get low, but I want you on your skates. If we're off our skates, we're doing ourselves a disservice.
No, good point. I like that.
So this is fascinating because I was a center when I played, and one of the things I prided myself on was my ability to win a faceoff. And the fact that you're teaching this as a skill coming from a linesman who dropped the puck. I mean, it's fucking so cool.
That's awesome.
Because you know what the linesman's looking for, right? And so teaching those little things, like there was always ways you could cheat. in air quotes, cheat, to
100%.
give yourself a better spot. So
gain advantage.
Gained
Yeah.
advantage. Right.
Right.
It's
And I don't want to kind of like tell all the secrets here, but at the end of the day, like, you know, ever since we were young and riding the school bus to school or having mom and dad drop us off or whatever, everybody always said, you know, you catch more ants with sugar than you do with salt. And that's rule number one for anybody coming out. You know, you can't be motherfucking guys all game and then expect a break. It doesn't work that way. And I can promise you it doesn't work that way in the pros. So,
right.
you know, you pick and choose your battles. And I'm not saying you have to kiss anyone's ass, but you have to be a pro. And if you're not a pro, you know, those guys they'll make you a winger before your coach will.
I mean,
That's awesome.
I mean, it's genius. I mean, like how many amazing centers have you seen come through the ranks and just night in, night out and watch them work and how they're professional and just passing that on as a profession. Like I always say now with video replay and how that's grown, I'm shocked more NHL teams or even college teams aren't hiring referees that know the game or what to challenge. Because like, I know at the college level, they're having a tough time. Hey, should we challenge this or should we not? Or, hey, let's just run the risk. And it's not, there's nothing, you know, they're just kind of throwing a chance out there. If you had somebody that knew what they were doing in that position and you can actually, hey, we need to challenge this right now. Boom, boom, boom. And you'll have a higher percentage to win those challenges than not, I think.
Yeah, I think that's hard to argue.
One thing I don't like about college hockey with the face-offs is the warning. So like you don't wheel guys out of the face-off.
We might get it's a rule change here, so that might be that's on the docket.
I hope so, because it does nothing. Like I always said, I'd cheat every freaking time because half the time you don't get warned anyway. You know, with a lot of the guys that do it, the center for in the national championship game, I texted you about it. He was cheating on every draw in their zone. The Denver center was turned even before the puck was even down. He's already turned in the circle, and he cheated every time. And the warning does nothing. You got to wheel a guy. I don't know.
And you know what else too? Like you need, I tell our guys, it's funny. It's actually great conversations we're having. Like we have these conversations every time every time we're engaged. And I tell our guys, like, don't take that fucking draw, you know, point them out, stand back, step back, especially as the defending center, point them out, point a skate. Hey dude, make it fair. All we're looking for as players, you know, for officials just to uphold the integrity of the game. And it starts with faceoffs. That's not fair. You know, I can't compete with that. I'm going to get fired. I'll lose my contract, whatever. But, you know, make sure you understand that there's accountability and ask for it too, because that's, as an official, that's your job. It's actually so frustrating to me. And I will say, like, I watch American Hockey League games now a lot. And, you know, there's a you know, a white spot in the faceoff circle for a fucking reason. And, you know, guys don't ever make them stop and pause. There needs to be a pause. So if you're the attacking center, I know they brought that rule in for more opportunities, but there's a difference between, you know, having a chance and outright cheating. And I think it's the officials, you know, responsibility to uphold the integrity of that draw.
Who was the toughest center to deal with for you as a linesman in the NHL to, like, you know, get set and do it the right way? Or, you know, who was most difficult?
Yeah, you know, I always had a problem with Brandon Dubinsky, and he was, you know, an Alaska kid. He was a real good player, like a real defensive specialist. He took a lot of draws and he pushed the envelope constantly. And I think that was probably my toughest guy. When I look back, I think that, you know, he was tough. Claude Giroux, he was a tough guy too, to kind of, you know, to kind of corral, especially, you know, in Philly. He was the captain. He was loved. Mike Richards, he was tough too. But there were so many great guys like Anze Kopitar, Carter, Crosby, you know, Tavares. Like all these guys were so great that
Bergeron,
the ones that Bergeron. I mean, like, you know, for sure, he was probably, in fairness, he's probably the best centerman I've ever had an opportunity to work with. Like he took a lot of pride in his faceoffs and his draws, and he was a true pro too. Like he wouldn't be yelling and screaming at you, and he was never using you as a scapegoat. So when he actually said something on the ice and complained, you probably took notice and thought, Jesus, you're probably right, dude. You know?
That's cool to hear. I've heard that before about him and how he used to make sure the other center was accountable too.
Yeah.
Like and do it in the right way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's important, right? And you know, we talk about it as officials. What's our job? You know, the most important job is make sure the game's got integrity, and it starts with drops, you know, face-offs, and it's important. Guys get contracts; they get contracts extensions, you know, on puck possession face-offs. It's important. It's important to make sure that the structure is done right.
It's an important job, and it's a scary job too. I had a linesman go down in the American League one night, and I had to drop pucks in the end zone, and that was scary. Not gonna lie. When that puck gets dropped back in a penalty kill, oh my God.
It's so funny you say that. I go to practice sometimes and I see Mike Keane out there and Nolan Baumgartner, and they're dropping
I love
pucks. And I
Nolan.
tell them, fuck, fellas, you're putting us back about 30 years with the way you drop these things. I'd rather you just didn't practice with them.
I got to know Nolan through the years. He's great.
Oh,
Yeah,
dude.
I love Nolan. He's a great kid. He used to bust my chops about all the Boston sports every time I saw him.
He's the best, man. And we you know, we really lucked out. Like, we got a great job with a great organization. It's not just because I'm from there. I mean, you know, the guys, the GM, you know, right from, it's funny, my first day in Winnipeg, I show up and I was telling my wife this story the other day. First day in Winnipeg, I show up to the practice rink, and it's like 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm trying to be the early bird gets the worm guy, you know, like the keener. And I show up there and open up the door, and I walk in, and first guy comes around the corner to shake my hand is the fucking owner, Mark Chipman. And Mr. Chipman's like, "Hey, Vaughan, how are you?" And I'm like, "Mr. Chipman, what are you doing here?" And he's like, awesome. He goes, "Oh, well, you know, I try to get here early." And I said to my wife, like, that's leading from the front of the line right there.
That's awesome. Now, how is when you first came into the league and you're dealing with these guys, these veteran guys that have been in the league, that are centers, that, you know, how do you establish that presence? Because this is something we talk about with younger refs all the time. How do you establish yourself without being an asshole, without, you know, kind of gaining that respect without forcing it? How do you find is the best way for a young guy to do that?
Yeah, you know what? I think you just have to be yourself, Rouse. You know, like don't try to be something you're not, and don't try to, like, you've made it to that level. Like, you're making it to the USHL because of the skill set you have. Don't have to go try to be, you know, working in the USHL and trying to be Brian Murphy. Let Brian Murphy be Brian Murphy, and you be Mark Riley, and I'll promise you that that's good enough. You just got to kind of find your little niche, and I think that's the biggest thing I would tell a young official is, don't try to be somebody you're not. You know, like, don't be that big bravado guy if that's not who you are. Because they can see right through shit, and
100%.
Especially at the pro level, they'll eat you up. So just be yourself. And I used to tell them all the time, like, not all the time, but I think I said it, you know, more than a dozen times. You know, only 3 people in the world allowed to yell at me, guys. You know, my mom, my dad, my wife. You didn't give birth to me. I'm not sleeping with you. Shut the fuck up. And and they were actually good. They would kind of chuckle a little bit and be like, "Okay, you know, leave the bald head guy alone."
That's awesome. That is so cool. Now, one thing you mentioned is be yourself, and that's, I think, so important. I want to ask you this because you drop pucks at the highest level. I have a theory that the more controlled your faceoffs are in youth hockey, especially the midget level, and we joke and say we still call them midgets, and I don't know how we're getting away with it, but we do.
Yeah.
You know, especially at that level, and especially at the junior level, the more controlled your faceoffs are, because that's the one place in the rink that we can control as officials. The more disciplined we are and make them at the faceoff, the more disciplined the game is, the less fucking nuts they are, and the less they try to take advantage of us. And I don't have the time, the money, or the resources to do a study, but I want to see that those junior games, and especially the midget games that have become dumpster fires, I'd love to see how bad the faceoffs were, or how much they cheated on the faceoffs that led to that undisciplined play.
Yeah, I think that's so great. You know, I think what happens there, Riles, honestly, is it's like anything, you know, there's people that don't want to get involved. and they think that if they don't hear news, it's good news, you know, and that's not necessarily the case. So they're taking a draw and they can just throw it in, and it's a fucking clusterfuck in that circle, and no one's complaining, so it's okay. And I think that's what we as supervisors, when you're supervising leagues, you need to tell them to get like, that's when a linesman can really make his bread and butter, or her bread and butter. You know, how you control your face-offs and what's your standard on the draw, and how do you communicate with these guys, and are you still able to find the window of opportunity to make sure it's efficient and fair. And I think all those things are a skill set, you know, and I think it's important to have the confidence personally to be able to kind of control those situations, honestly.
Because I mean, good face-offs, bad face-offs. Like, you want to have, like, when they're dragging on, it's just another layer of them to get on us as officials, right? It's just another thing that they can be like, oh, can these guys get anything right tonight? And it's something that we can control and we can manage. And if you got to get a grip on it early, talk to the centers early, and, you know, set a standard and make sure you hold it. And both guys need to be on the same page. You can't have one guy down one end doing it one way, and then the other end, someone's doing it completely different. So,
well, you know what, Gino, it says right in the fucking rule book, you know, there needs to be a pause. Right. You know, attacking stick or defending stick down first, attacking stick down second, needs to be a pause. It actually says their whites of the sticks have to be in the whites of the face-off circle. Dude, it's not rocket science. Enforce the fucking rule.
Right.
You know, it makes things pretty simple, you know?
And it's amazing how many people don't.
Right.
And I think too, there's a mentality of get the puck down, you know, and just get it down, and don't, like, I've had discussions with partners, you know, in a midget game, and they're like, you know, well, I'm not lining everyone up because it's going to take too long. And my argument is, if you do it right from the beginning, it actually speeds it up.
Yeah.
Because then they're not fucking around.
You blow that whistle, they're in there, they're set, and you're going, right?
Boom.
Yeah.
And I think that's a kind of a misconception. If you just get the puck down, you're better off. And in the long run, you're not. You're really not. And
you know what? I mean, at higher levels of hockey, we've all worked high levels of hockey. If you don't have the players' trust, if they don't trust you to be fair, they're going to cheat all day. Yep. So you see the guys who actually have controlled faceoffs, you know, there's a lot said there on players' trust. They trust you to kind of make sure that guy's going to stop. They trust you to make sure it's going to be efficient and fair. And you know, that's an important kind of a tool to have in an official's toolbox, is players' trust.
So I was going to say, I had a coach say on a call, like, we have coaches call once a week in one of the junior leagues, and I jump on it, and, you know, whatever they have. And one of the discussions with face-offs, and one of the coaches says, I tell my guys to cheat on every draw. Like, I'm trying to get that advantage every time until we get told no, we're going to keep doing it. And I'm like, well, you got to run the risk of a minor penalty. I was like, have at it. So until you, like Bill Belichick goes, hey, keep holding them until they call it. They're not going to call holding on every play. So same principle.
Well, it's
there was only three. I think there was only, I know they play like 1,300 games or whatever in the National Hockey League, and I want to say there was only one face-off violation this year, secondary face-off violation.
My bad.
So, you know, like it but honestly, it never happens. So
no, it doesn't.
Call the
they
penalty,
don't call.
dude. I know, and they should.
Right.
Like that's another, enforce the penalty. And if you want structure in your face-offs, hey, listen, there used to be a free-for-all. Guys used to tackle guys. Mario Lemieux, you know, he'd get filed for freaking rape charges every day because guys were all over him, you know, and he would just battle through. The game has changed, and the game's in a better spot because of structure. We were told to call penalties. The guys called penalties. If they did the same thing and gave the linesman that same authority, you said, I don't know who mentioned it, but somebody was like, well, we get the warning, or we don't get the warning, or we can't eject the center. Are you fucking joking? Like, like,
it's awful.
You know, eject the center and then call the fucking penalty. You want structure? Give them the opportunity.
Right.
I called the face-off violation as a ref in a college game this year, because I told the linesman, he was less experienced, newer, not younger, and I told him, you got to stop letting this kid cheat. He's cheating every time. And he wouldn't do anything about it. So the next face-off, the kid spun. I blew the whistle. I said, warning on white. You know, I was on the goal line. And sure enough, the kid does it again. I blew the whistle. I go, let's go. So at the next stoppage, we all got together at the bench, and I go, listen, I don't mean to do your job, but you got to do your fucking job.
Sure. 100%.
You know, and the coach even said, what? That's not your call to make. I was like, yeah, I love that one.
Yeah.
I just made it. So,
Yeah.
you know, I don't think you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I think it's, I always looked at faceoffs, and of course, I never dropped them in pro or college, but, you know, when you do a 2-man game or whatever, I always took pride in the fact that my faceoffs were tight, were good, were disciplined, were fair, right?
Sure.
And I think that's something that's lacking for those guys who are trying to figure it out, not at the higher levels, obviously. But I think that's something that guys really kind of need that approach. And I love the fact that you mentioned trust. Gino mentions trust all the time. If players don't trust you, if coaches don't trust you,
it's gone.
It's a dumpster fire for sure. It's going to be
walk
out
right
the window.
over you. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If they don't trust you, you might as well just leave it there and count to 3 and everybody can just attack the face off. You know what I mean? Free
Rugby
puck,
scrum.
because,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we got some.
It has to happen.
We got some guys that I call it a grenade drop. They basically just pull the pin and throw it.
That's what I do in the summertime. in that spring league in Foxborough, you just do you pick it up. It's 100 goals, right? Everything's like 14, 15 goals a game, right? So you just pick the puck up, you skate center ice, keep it playing. They don't want to sit there and watch. They want that puck going. Like, you're not calling anything anyway.
Right.
That's true. That's true. But I've seen it happen in actual games.
Oh yeah,
where they just like they throw it. It's like, what are you doing? You're not even looking.
Right.
One thing I noticed too, and I don't know if you've seen this, Vaughan, a lot of, and maybe it's just the younger guys, college guys, a lot of guys now, they drop the puck and they stand there and don't get out. And next thing you know, it's like they're in trouble.
Yeah.
And like I keep telling guys, don't watch. You got to react. You got to take that lane right when it's there. And they stand there, and then next thing you know, they're behind the net. That game I did last week with Chris Henry, the linesman end up behind the net.
They do the wheel. Did the other linesman go across and the other guy?
I said they should have done the Russian.
Oh, that's the best.
The Russian. You got to do it.
Well, Riles, you know, to that point there, you're talking about that point. That would be a great kind of intro into where did these guys learn the craft? You know, were they officiating at 13 and 12, or were they, you know, playing until they were 18 and then started refereeing? Right. You know, like where did they learn the craft? So that would be kind of a good thing for you to look back on and go, I wonder who that guy was and what was his background of officiating, you know?
No, that's a great point.
I must be an anomaly because I didn't start ref until probably 2 or 3 years after college. I was like 23, 24 when I first refereed. And I was
but
fucking
you had
awesome.
Like you talked about it today. Like you had great confidence. You were in good shape, you know, like fucking, you know, honestly, you're in great shape. And you know, like, so you had a lot of that. You could skate, dude. I mean, like you had so many things going for you that it was hard not to kind of give you an opportunity. You know, you kind of just, you fit in, you know, and I think that's important too. You know, your face has got to fit too, you know.
My face usually fits pretty good.
So many jokes.
I said that, so you guys tossing you one.
I know. I couldn't. There was so many went through my head. I
tried to give him one.
Out, I don't know. Yeah, I couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't.
I tried to give you one. You didn't even take it.
I froze.
Unbelievable.
That was a layup.
Unbelievable. Now I want to talk about your other gig that you're doing now because I find it fascinating. That I want to know how you got into the whole Amazon thing.
Yeah, that was crazy, dude. Like about 3 years before I retired from the NHL, I had a buddy of mine who was an engineer at Boeing, and he applied to own an Amazon franchise. And I was like, what the fuck is that? Like, what are you talking about? I actually thought, you know, before we owned this business, I thought my wife was having an affair with an Amazon driver because there's a fucking van in my yard every day. I was like, what's happening here? But so, you know, he applied to, there's like, at the time there was like 7 steps and he got to step 4 and he didn't go any further. And he was telling me about it. And it was right in the middle of the lockout, like the NHL had shut down for COVID. And I was like, I'm going to give this a shot just to kind of be a competitive guy. And so I actually, that's kind of how it started. If you can believe this, you know, you had to write a 3-year business plan, a 5-year business plan. You had to kind of, you know, I had all these meetings, and every meeting was a new Zoom call in front of 4 or 5 of these guys, and they would advance you on. And I Googled a 3-year business plan. I Googled a 5-year business plan because I had no idea, and wrote them up and sent them off, and they were accepted. And then we would have an interview, and that went well. And I went to the next stage, and then went to the next stage. And the final stage, Riles, you'll get a kick out of this, was there was 4 people interviewing me, and they asked me about my termination plan. And I said, you know what? I don't have a termination plan. And they said, yeah, I know you're missing it. And I said, no, I'm not. I said, if I fired Jim or John or whatever, it says more about my lack of managerial skills than it does about their employment. And I've worked with guys who got fired, Tommy Cowell, Don Henderson, Mark or Rob Martell, Darren Gibbs. And they didn't fire those guys specifically, just them. They fired their mom and their dad and their wife, who looked at their husband a little differently, and it wasn't their fault. They just fired them for sometimes no reason at all. And I said, you know what, Pro Edge is going to be better than that. We're going to actually teach these people. We're going to hire the right people, and we're going to do a better job of training them. And honestly, I don't think they had ever heard that before. They were like, whoa, what's going on? And honestly, my wife was sitting, across from me on the at the desk there, and she's like, we went on pause for a minute, and she's like, holy fuck, that's a great answer. You're going to get this franchise. and that's
Where'd that answer come from?
They actually came back on, and they were like, we're going to award this franchise to you. And it's in Littleton, Colorado. There was 15,000 of us that applied. They offered 2 franchises that day, I guess, myself and another guy who took one in Atlanta. Mine was in Littleton, Colorado. And I was like, look, dude, I can't go to Littleton, Colorado because I have 2 more years left in the National Hockey League. And they were like, what do you mean the National Hockey League? Like, you're refereeing hockey. That can't even be a full-time job. And I'm like, no, dude, it's a full-time job with a pension. It's a pretty good job too. And anyway, they were like, well, hang on for a second. So he phoned me back the next day, and he's like, well, Vaughan, if you're not going to move, we have an opportunity in Everett, Washington. How far is Everett from you? And I said, it's 15 minutes from my house. And they were like, dude, are you ready to kind of start? You just got to start faster. And I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. So yeah, here we are 3.5 years later. We actually, little bit boasting here, but Amazon, they kind of, they reward success. And every year it's like having a 1-year contract. You have a 1-year contract unless they feel that you've actually set the bar a little bit, and then they award you a 3-year deal. Well, we were awarded a 3-year deal in our second year. So they kind of really said, hey, listen, you guys are doing really well. And yeah, so we've been really lucky, honestly, dude. It's busy as all fuck. I'm not gonna lie to you. I wish every once in a while we'd have a power outage and everyone could get a day off, but it's actually insane. And you're working with different people too, Riles. Like, these people have never really played sports. I got a lot of drivers that are, from other countries and looking for an opportunity. We're paying them anywhere between 21 and 23 bucks an hour. And we try to, we got season tickets for this and season tickets for that. We try to give them things to kind of incentivize them. But at the end of the day, if you just treat these people properly and let them know that you truly care about them, they'll go through the wall for you. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, dude. But the Amazon thing, it's been pretty cool for us.
That's awesome. I didn't even know Amazon had franchises. Like Ian told me about it, and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's so cool.
Yeah,
so
it's
cool.
You know what? I mean, Amazon could do a lot better too. Like, don't get me wrong. Like these 21 to 23 bucks an hour, like, if Jeff would get off his wallet maybe and give these guys a little bit of a raise, like, I don't know how many more billion you need to make, but it would be okay for these guys to make about 26 to 30, because that's how hard they work. These guys and girls are busting their ass, and they're walking up to dogs that, are unchained, and people know they're ordering a package, but they don't fucking leave their lights on. Dude, it's a tough gig. These guys gotta hoe every day, and they should be getting more, and Amazon should do a better job of paying them more.
Well, Bezos got to pay for his divorce.
Well,
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy when you get divorced and your wife gets half, and she is like the third richest person in the world from your
something.
half.
insane.
Yeah.
They're like, that's just fucked.
Bill Burr has a good bit on that.
Oh, yeah, he's got a few good bits on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Amazon. Well, we won't talk
Yeah.
ill
It's a
of
cool
them,
thing, but they
but
could do better
that's
as a group.
yeah.
Well, that truck's at my house every day with something, delivering something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, give them the thumbs up because that helps, right?
Absolutely.
Fucking thumbs up on the delivery. Don't you give them the thumbs down,
I
Gino.
usually
They'll be
walk
coming to
halfway
your
down the
house.
driveway to help them out.
Fucking
Well-
toilet paper in your house if you give them a thumbs down.
Exactly. I got toilet paper, paper towel, you name it gets delivered. I'm like,
Yeah.
Frankie Chirps here. He thinks every Amazon driver is a terrorist. He like FedEx, no matter who they are, he like goes nuts.
well, my daughter thinks the Amazon truck is Santa Claus. So
Well, Amazon's got to do some marketing issues too, because last year they were wondering why all these vans were getting broken into, and their fucking slogan was "Everything you need is in this truck." And I'm thinking, listen, you donkey, you might want to fucking
it's like that
rebrand
red
that.
eye tech truck in Southie that got broken into. What do you think's in here? Hockey equipment?
Yeah, fire that guy.
Right? Oh man. And are your trucks electric? Do you got the electric trucks?
No, we actually have the gas powered trucks, but you'd think here in Washington State it's going to be electric pretty soon. So I'm sure they're coming. We just got a thing the other day saying they're going to rebrand some vans, so we're just going through that right now to see what that process is. But it's a pain in the ass, and it's like, dude, these vans get shut off 300 times a day. These guys got 300 packages. It's a fucking grind out there. It really is.
Wow.
It's like, it's fascinating. Like people like our profession, they dive in. They're like, oh, what do you guys actually go through? And they're just something as far as what these, these guys, I deliver a package. I get one every day. Like these guys are doing me a service, so I don't have to go out and do something. And they're actually working their ass off traveling. And it's just funny how like the stuff that they go through. Like we leave our families to go out on a weekend and come home, and like what these guys are going through daily. It's just like different jobs, different avenues and things. It's interesting to get those perspectives.
Yeah, 4 days a year Amazon gives them off. That's it. They got 4th of July, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Boxing Day. It's actually terrible. I'm growing up in Canada, unions are a big thing in Canada. Maybe they are in Boston too. But I always thought, as an owner, oh geez, I didn't really want a union. I wanted to kind of be able to I wanted to be able to treat my employees properly and just want them to stay, because they need a union, dude. They need a voice. Honestly, they do, because Amazon's, they as much as it's a great kind of a company and it provides us a decent living and stuff, they're taking advantage, and they could just do, when you have that much money, you could do a better job.
Absolutely. And for our American listeners, Boxing Day is the day after Christmas, right? Canadians celebrate.
I was just gonna say, what the fuck is Boxing Day?
Yeah,
that's funny. I actually
just busting his balls.
That is awesome. Yeah,
but back home in Canada, like we were just talking about the unions, if our fucking dog slept in somebody else's backyard, we wanted a day off. So seriously, Canadians look for any reason to take a day off, dude.
Me and my wife drove up on Christmas Day to Toronto and at the Maple Leaf Garden, and they played Hamilton. It was the American League game. Me and Jamie Kohaski worked the game.
Oh,
it
yeah.
was awesome. Yeah. We did the Boxing game at 1:00. It was during the year of the lockout, so there was a ton of games getting played in National Hockey League buildings that year. And I did a swing. I went like there, Buffalo. That was pretty cool. But
yeah, how cool is that, right? That's awesome. Yeah, and Jamie's a good dude too,
Jamie's the best. I love Jamie. We're good friends, and I've been to his house every time I'm down in Tampa. He has us over. Like he's great. We got to get him on this thing.
We're trying to get all the co-hosts on, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Terry and Don. Now Gino's from South Boston. Every day is Boxing Day in South Boston. And Boxing Day here, I think in Massachusetts was Marvin Hagler's birthday. Marvelous Marvin Hagler.
Really?
Right?
I remember.
I'm throwing shit out here. Sometimes if
I
there
remember
are home runs,
you guys had Walshy was out here from Philly one time with me, and we were driving around, Seattle, and we had this thing called the carpool lane. So, I don't know if you guys have them out there. Carpool lane. This was years ago when it first kind of started. And Walshy's like, well, why aren't we in, why are we in this lane? I said, well, because there's 2 or more of us, we can drive in this lane. And he goes, well, they regulate this? And I go, yeah, they kind of regulate it. And he goes, this fucking wouldn't fly in Philly. Everybody would be in this fucking lane.
We have it in Boston, no lie. I used to I had this huge teddy bear when I was living up north, and I had to drive through the city, and I put a baseball hat on the thing in the back seat. And if the cop was there on the Zakim Bridge checking,
Oh yeah,
I'd turn and act like I was yelling at him like it was my kid. I got bagged one time, but yeah, that's what we
that
do here in Boston. Yeah, I remember when Sports Authority went out of business.
Yes,
they were selling the mannequins. I grabbed one for the Hovlane. That's what I did.
Funny.
You know,
that's excellent.
That's honest to God truth. I did. Why not? Anyway, we digress. There's a lot of shit that wouldn't fly in Philly. I know that. Being from Boston, Philly's not exactly. If you're listening in Philly, thank you, but you suck. No, you don't say.
All our friends from Philly, we love you.
We love people from. I have best friends from Philly outside of Ian Walsh. My buddy Bupesh, Vashist, my Indian friend who's a plastic surgeon down in New Jersey. He's from Philly, huge Philly fan, and I love him.
And he's the main character in his movie.
Yeah, well, you know what, Vaughn, I wrote a script, right? Do you know about the movie?
Yeah, he wrote a movie.
Oh, I gotta send you. I'll email you a copy. It's called.
Dude, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, it's called Penalty Box, and it's based on the East Coast League, and it follows 4 a couple referees, couple linesmen, and their journey trying to make it to the NHL. And
awesome, dude.
All based on true people.
Yeah.
I don't. Do you know Mark Hamlet, the Hammer?
No.
No, you never. That's actually a good.
He never worked the minors. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's right. He only worked the East Coast League. He was a hillbilly. And from North Carolina. He's based out. You actually probably wouldn't know anyone because they're all people that worked on, over on this coast and in the minors. But yeah, I'll send you a copy.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Maybe with all your Amazon money, you can fund it. We can make it. What do you think?
Dude, I don't know if I can say this, but I still got to jerk off the dog to feed the cat around my house, dude. Oh, great.
And for those of you who think we're woke, go fuck yourself.
Ralph, I got a funny story about you real quick, okay? And it's it's actually not a funny story. It is actually a true story that you told me. And it put my career into perspective. And it's actually carried me for a long time about how fortunate I was to be in this league. I looked at you like a great official, and you were part of the, the trainee program. And I thought for sure that they were going to hire you. I thought for sure Mark Riley's going to get hired by the National Hockey League. And I don't know if you remember this, but I wasn't hired yet. But you phoned me and you told me that they let you go. And you said, Rhodes, I was driving across the bridge in Boston, and it was all I could do not to fucking turn the fucking wheel and drive off. And that stuck with me, dude. It stuck with me to realize how fortunate I was to have the opportunity that was presented to me, and how much I needed to appreciate that. So I don't know if you remember telling me that story, brother, but you did. And it stuck with me for a long time.
No, that's really cool. I really appreciate you telling me that, because that's one of those ones. I know I called you for sure. And, that was a dark day, like you go from that, a week before, the Thursday before, you get the call, we're bringing you on, and fuck it, that was all I worked for what, 5 years being on the road.
Yeah, that's all you. And then a week later, all that. Yeah,
you get the call, and you're like, now you got to call all the people. Like my dad was the toughest call. Right. I had to call him and be like, yeah, how I, because it was all about impressing him, right? That's what we. Sure. That's why I wanted to play college hockey. And so. That's really cool. I appreciate you sharing that, because that's one of those ones. There's a lot of things I've said over the years that I forget. Right. And that's a cool story. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, it's true, brother. I remember that.
And your answer to Amazon about your termination plan, like that's you, right? Like that answer it made me remember how fucking great it is to be a friend of yours. Cause like, that's not many people would have that answer. Like I would have had some smart ass comment about dying or something when they, if they asked me, what's your termination plan? I don't know. Hookers, strippers, and midgets in Las Vegas. Like what? What? You know what I mean?
If I'm going out, I'm going out with a blaze of glory, baby.
Yeah, I'm going scorched earth, baby.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Make
And
a
it could
headline,
be- And that could be just one person. You don't know. It's Vegas. But
That's funny.
but what's your? We'll get you before we let you go because this has been awesome.
You've been great.
Who do you like for the Stanley
Dude, hang
Cup
on.
this year?
Was it better than fucking Whitney? That's all I want to know.
Listen, we had Ryan Whitney on last episode,
that last
which
episode.
I hope everyone watched. And we
Yeah.
said, we got to get someone that's going to be able to carry a show as a guest. And you were my first thought. I'm serious.
there
I
you
said,
go,
we got to
brother.
get Rhodes.
Awesome.
We got to
Absolutely
get the Rhodes
crushed
show
it.
on
You
here.
absolutely crushed it. This was awesome. Like,
I texted Gina. I go, hey, I just scored Vaughan Rody for next week's episode. And his response was, who the fuck is Vaughan Rody? No, I'm kidding. He was pretty psyched.
I thought we were getting a cowboy.
Yeah, well, by those hats, I don't know. I think you might identify.
Oh, this
as one.
fucking potato. I need something to cover him up.
Well, you know what? We're wearing our Chirping zebra hats.
Dude, I love it.
These bad boys, these trucker hats. We're gonna send you a whole setup. A
Yeah,
quarter zip.
that'd be
We got
great.
hoodies, t-shirts, hats,
That'd be
mid
great.
hats.
Yeah.
Do I need to
I'm
phone
shipping.
Gino's dad for that, or can I? Am I
No.
good there? Is that...
You're all right.
I may or may not have ordered a few hundred too many shirts that are sitting in his garage in my storage unit.
Yeah, Griff came over the other day. He was like, holy shit, that's a lot of merch. I go, well, Riley
got
has
the
just
other
as
half.
much.
But
We'll be
we're
hitting the rinks
sending
this summer.
We're gonna send you a zebra package.
Well, I'm wearing
a
it,
care
dude.
package.
I'm wearing it.
I
It
know.
won't- it- I've sent you packages before, so but this one will have clothes in it. That was for me and you. So,
That's true.
Vaughn, we want to thank you, man. This has been
Thank you very
Awesome.
much. This was incredible.
Gino,
just
my pleasure, dude.
reconnecting, and seeing you after all these years. It's like, it was like yesterday we were driving through that blizzard and you were sleeping,
Yeah.
and I got to come out there and do some comedy. I got to come out to Seattle, do some comedy.
Dude, I'd love
You
to
got
have
to
you.
come to Boston and we'll give you the real tour.
Yeah, we'd love to do that, dude. Honestly,
Yeah.
we'd love to have
We'll
you
bring-
for sure.
We know a
Yeah,
guy.
bring Gino too. We'd love to have him. We got
Absolutely.
lots of room. It'd be great.
Oh, that'd
Yeah,
be
no,
fun.
I
I would enjoy that.
I'm going to leave my dog at home because I know your cats would attack it like they attacked me.
Yeah, well, years ago, our cat's name was Max, and now our next one is Remax.
That's awesome. That's a good one. I might use that. I'll credit you though. I pay
All right,
25
boys.
a joke.
I know this dog. See, he's giving me the hairy eyeball again.
Yeah, no, he's not happy.
Well, he knows I want shotgun.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a long ride home. We might have to stop at Kelly's on the ride home.
That's not a bad
Get a
idea.
sandwich. We're gonna have to get a sandwich. Rhodes, thanks, man, for coming
Rhodes,
my
on.
thank you
pleasure,
very
boys.
much. This was
Take
excellent.
care, okay, thanks
So
very much, guys.
appreciate
I
it.
appreciate the
Oh,
opportunity.
who do you think's gonna win the
Oh,
cup? Before you shared that very touching story about me driving off a bridge.
Well,
Who do
I
you think?
think
you
I'm
win
still on payroll here. If I don't say the Jets, I might be fucked. But
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. I
All right,
forgot. I
fair
can't
enough.
put you on the spot. They looked good the other night.
They did?
They opened up with they put up a 7 spot.
yeah,
So-
yeah. They I think, you know what, it's going to be great. I mean, the playoffs are a great thing. It's a different game. I mean, this run and gun stuff. There's more grit in the playoffs. I think we're all old school guys. We like that extra little bit of grit that comes with playoff hockey. So I'm just excited to go and to watch it. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm sure fucking hoping Boston's putting the boots to freaking Toronto. So I don't know what the score is, but
It was 2-1. It was 2-1 when we signed on after the first. So
all right. So
Nice.
I'm gonna go down and pour a rum and go watch the rest of that.
very good. Go bees.
It must be in the playoffs. I wanted to bring this up earlier. I know we kind of
We have a long we do this with all our guests. So
we have no clock on this, but Are the playoffs as a linesman, because there's shit after every freaking whistle?
Yeah.
The playoffs got to be a nightmare for a linesman, no?
Well, I don't know. You want to ask somebody who worked a lot of playoff games? You might want to look at my bio.
You had what, 9?
Hey, I got 22 years, dude, but fucking 24 playoff games, I think. I don't know. I'm still waiting for some emails. I think I could go tomorrow if they sent me one, but no, I had a successful career, but a successful career is not marked by a successful playoff run. And I didn't find success in the playoffs for a few reasons maybe, and some of them I have to look within myself at. So there's that, but yeah, I didn't have a whole bunch of success. I did work, I think I worked 6 years, maybe 7 in the playoffs, which was great. And it is different, dude. It is we work the grinds of February and March and January when it's cold to get the opportunity to work the playoffs, no matter what level you're working. If you work the playoffs, anybody who's an official listening, give yourself a pat in the back because you've earned it. It's not given away. And yeah, the game is different. In the National Hockey League, it's a different animal, man, for sure it is. And it's something that everybody, you wish everybody had an opportunity to be a part of because it's special.
Right on.
No, I wish I didn't answer that. Well, I'll say this though. Hey, I don't care, and I'll say this without any hesitation. There's plenty of guys like yourself that should have worked a bunch more playoffs for sure, because I know what kind of linesman you were, and you were one of the tops in my book. And I'm not just saying that because you're on here. Even working with you back in the WHL and watching you work in the NHL, every time you were in a game, man, I watched, and it wasn't a Bruins game because most times you were out west, and I used to love watching you skate and work. So success is not defined by playoff games, and we know some that worked the Stanley Cup Finals that shouldn't have been. So we all know that. But we'll
congrats on great success.
You had a great career, man.
Thanks, brother. Thanks,
and
boys.
I love this. I love the face-off thing, man. I got to get in on that. I got to come out and sit in on a class or something because I might be able to teach a few things.
We got actually, I'm going to tell you a little something here. I know you guys got to go, but I actually, this is crazy. Okay. But you have a baseball pitching machine. We have a football throwing machine. You have a soccer rebound machine. The one thing they don't have is a face-off machine, but we have one now. I actually, I invented a face-off machine, Riles, if you can believe
no
this.
way.
That is
yeah. And I own the patent. I'm gonna send you a clip. You won't even believe it after this. I own the patent in US and Canada.
Good for you, man. That is
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's
you got a clip.
We're about
Can we
I have a partner. My partner's name is Jimmy Roy. He played in the American Hockey League for a long time. He's the director of player development for the Winnipeg Jets. He's a fucking tremendous guy. But yeah, we developed a puck dropping machine, and well, I won't bore you guys here, but it's going to be ready in about 3 months for the market. It's going to change the game, dude. Honestly, honestly,
that's fucking awesome, incredible. Man. That is so freaking cool. Huh? That's pretty sick, cool. Man. Yeah. That's really sick. Yeah. All right. Well, awesome. All right, on that note, that's a much happier note to end on.
Very, very good.
Vaughan Rody's puck dropping machine. We're going to see it in a second. I want to thank Rhodes for coming on. Want to thank our sponsor, Referees Crease, for this episode and taking good care of us. Want to thank AOA Studios for having us. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you check out all our social medias. During the NHL playoffs, we're going to be live casting and commenting on different things and calls. So make sure you check that out. And make sure if you want some merch, reach out, Mark at chirpingzebras.com. That's our website, and go check it out. Follow us on social, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time right here on the Chirping Zebras.
Right on.